you don't follow me on social media, you may not know, but this year I took the bike out to Bonneville for the first time, and what a milestone it was, and what a pain in the butt it was. We actually ended up having a ton of trouble getting there, a ton of trouble on the salt, but overall I see it as a full success. I'd actually planned to go by myself and just try and figure it out, maybe ask EV West for some help, but my buddy Brassfield came through, and my other buddy Jordan Bologna flew out last minute to help, and boy, I don't think I could have done it by myself. So yeah, we'll start you off 1 week before El Mirage, and just a forewarning, the footage is pretty choppy because I was moving fast and not worried about filming. So I'll narrate most of this so you can get the gist of it, but let's go from here. Okay, so it's 1 week until I go to El Mirage, and I'm just wrapping up a couple of last minute checks. I'm going to go through and check every nut and bolt, make sure everything's tight, but electrically I had a couple issues, so I brought my buddy Andy over to go through the code. And I think we tightened everything up. Had a little bit of a jitter in some of the throttle inputs, causing it to kind of cut out for like milliseconds. But we softened all that up, and it looks like we're ready to go. Enhance. So for the next week at El Mirage, I'm not going to run it with the body on it. It was too much work. I wasn't going to be ready with the canopy and everything, so I decided for El Mirage, I brought it with the wing, the original wing. I basically modified the rear tubes to match the CAD, had to bring them up about 3 inches, which means I had to modify the wing, but aerodynamically it should be absolutely fine. So at El Mirage, I'm just going to get my driver's license, my rookie license, and then if I get a second run, I'm going to try and take it out and open it up a little bit, but I don't know if there's enough room there for me to really break the record. We're going to try. We're going to see how it goes. Those runs will be kind of like preliminary. I'll probably leave the landing gear partially down because the plans I got for the future, I'm actually going to rebuild the battery, a whole new battery, and I'm actually going to rebuild the landing gear, and I'm going to mount all the carbon. So that gives me 1 month after we come back to do all of that stuff, to get ready for Bonneville. So once I get back from El Mirage, we're going to rip the battery out, we're going to tear open the chassis, and it's going to be full bore. Because the moment I commit to that, we gotta run. It's going to be crazy. So.
And El Mirage was canceled.
For the body, I ended up finishing up the last video, and that was a huge feat of mine. I'm super proud of it. You should go back and watch that video, but I had to cut it up at this point off the foam, and I used the Makita jigsaw and skill saw for that task. Now I cut it into about 8 different pieces, and I just laid it up over the bike after that to see if it would fit, and everything seemed like it was fitting pretty well along the body, which is great news because CAD to reality sometimes doesn't work. I had to sit down and think about really how I was going to mount this, and I ended up using 3" by 8" steel strapping with floating M5 riv nuts from McMaster-Carr. What I would do is I would put all the panels in place, kind of floating with little clamps, and the steel pieces behind it. I drill out about 200 5mm holes, and then they would just kind of make a mark on the strapping behind it. I remove all the panels and the strapping, take it over to the mill, drill out a 10mm hole, and this was meant to receive the riv nuts. I ended up buying a pneumatic tool because putting them in by hand could just be so tedious, and having to do about 200 of them just didn't seem like the task. So after this is finished, mount everything back up, screw everything back in place, and weld this steel strapping back to the chassis so everything is lined up properly. Okay, so this is my wing. I'm trying to mount it, and I got a bunch of styrofoam stuck in there. Quick tip, if you pour gasoline on the foam, it'll go right away. So at this point I got most of the panels matched up, and the seams were looking really good. I just had to finish welding the rest of the supports in place and getting the front canopy cut out. So you can see here everything's matching up. I was tickled just to have everything on there completely, and pretty stoked on this. So go ahead and follow me on Instagram if you want to follow along. I posted a lot of this stuff. Okay, so we get a lot of work done, not a lot of filming. As you can see, I got the body on. This is the first time I have almost all the body on, and I've dropped it down on the wheels, and it worked out. I got 2.5 inches of ground clearance in the front. It was supposed to be 3, so I do have about a 1/2 inch tilt forward. And the ride height isn't too low. I've seen lower than that. So I'm pretty freaking stoked. It's like 2 a.m. I've been doing 6 to 7 hour days after work. And it's just crazy. It's going to get done. Got a new battery. Got a new body. Bonneville's going to be fun. And Jordan's coming. Woo! So I think this was actually Friday night. We had run out of metal for the canopy, so we're kind of scavenging around. We ended up finding this 48-inch aluminum ruler that worked perfect for what we were looking for. So you can see here the final product of it being in the canopy, and you know, just had to make things do as we went. Here's the final fit up of the canopy, and it fit in nicely with all the seams lining up pretty well. Oh man. After sitting in the bike, I took a Sharpie and marked up some of the lines for visibility, and we got this kind of outline here. This wasn't the completely finished piece, but we ended up drawing a new one on a piece of cloth. And I just made a little template here, and you can see I'm cutting it out to get the proper shape for a template. We're going to actually cut this out of 1/8-inch polycarbonate, smoked. And here I'm folding it over on the center line so we can get it symmetrical from side to side. Now I laid it back up over the bike and just to see, make sure it fit off properly. And I'm going to go ahead and grab a can of spray paint after I tape this thing down and just get it marked up so we know where it lands. And then we can take this piece over to the polycarbonate, transfer it over, and cut it out. So after we got the windshield all fitted up, it was time to blow the body apart and do a sanding coat of epoxy. Now I didn't end up getting a chance to do any more coats, so this was kind of the final coat for Bonneville, but I would like to do a couple more coats and sand it to make it a little bit smoother because the final finish isn't that great. But it'll do for Bonneville. We're going to try and keep it under 200 miles per hour. And you know, if we're going to be fighting for a couple of miles per hour after this, we'll clean it up. Now you can see here there's a couple of rules that you have where you have to have a way to tow the bike on and off the track. So what I did is I added an eyelet to the front with a whole nose cone removable piece. And this is a 1.5-inch steel bar structure, and it just runs to the front of the bike so we can tow it out to the pits or off the track. Now for the hatch release, I actually found these trailer door handles, and on the inside there was a small hook, and I added a handle so from the inside you can pop it out. After getting all of that together, I rolled it outside so I could take a look at it with the final epoxy on it. I called up my buddy from 555 Designs to come out and install the graphics. Thrashed Kid on Instagram did a great job of designing this, and I'm just tickled that the freaking wing is right on that flap out. It's so funny. So next on the list, after staring at it for a little bit, is we need to cut the canopy out so we can put the windshield on. And Dustin Hanson from Hanson Handmade came by and really helped out with this whole piece. This is just one of the many things that he helped me out with, and I couldn't have done it without him, honestly. So here's some slow-mo of him cut the piece out, and once he got that all finished up, we bolted the polycarbonate in there, and it just absolutely transformed the bike. It was insane. We were all super pumped to see it in this state, and the view from the inside of the canopy, just beautiful. You can see from this picture, it almost looks like a jet fighter or something. So we actually ended up tearing the battery out and the previous landing gear. You can see here is the old battery modules getting pulled out, and we're cutting away every excess piece, taking the landing gear off, cutting off all the tubes to make space for all this stuff. And Dustin
from Hanson Handmade came by and made this beautiful dual trailer jack piece just so we could run the landing gear out. And it was a lot more reliable than the previous one, and the functionality of it was much better. We're actually running it with a Makita drill here, but we ended up using two 12-volt windshield wiper motors. You can see it moves pretty fast, but with those windshield wiper motors, it's a little bit slower. At this point, I needed to make an A-frame, so I scrapped together all the stuff in the yard and made this thing. You can see it's controlled within the cockpit with a Makita drill that I've hacked apart and 3D printed a new holder for. This goes up and down. It's actually a bi-directional switch that flips the polarity to run the motors in reverse. This ended up being a little bit of a problem later on, but we'll fix that coming up. And you can see here the two windshield wipers are coupled to the jacks with an Amazon style coupler. We ended up putting two Makita batteries in series to get a 40-volt system to crank up the speed on those motors. Now if you look closely, you can see two brake light switches that actually control the up and down indicators. We had a failure with that, but that'll come in the next video. So I guess this is what they call thrashing, and I was thrashing like crazy. Yeah, this is basically when you have no time left and all you're doing is just throwing tools, throwing stuff, leaving junk wherever it lands because you got no time to clean. Not the best way to work, but we got it done in time. And at this point I had taken the week off and I was working 15-hour days, rolling around in carbon fiber dust and steel. I had the Birkenstocks on with socks, and this is what your feet look like, I guess, when you work in the shop all day. So not recommended, but it was hot out. Alright, when it comes to the battery, I really can't say much because this is the secret sauce, but I can say this: I doubled my energy and I tripled my power capacity. We're still running the same motor with 250 horse, but at this point we could probably plop in a Tesla motor and get 600 horsepower. That's the new sauce there, so we'll see what happens.